right, welcome back. This is part two of our series on creating a polynomial grapher with tangent line. Um, so we have a dynamic graph that we've created with a huge 10,000 element t-chart, as you can see. And this is a dynamic graph, so we're able to choose A, B, C, D, E, F for this equation. For instance, if I change A to, let's say, -2, as soon as I hit enter in 3, 2, 1, the graph is dynamic. And likewise with our x-min, x-max, for instance, it looks like we have a pretty good idea what's happening to the behavior of this graph to the left of -1.3. So maybe I don't want to chase the graph all the way up to 80. So I'm going to go ahead and just choose x-min to be -1.3. And you see we get a little bit better idea of the appearance of what you might refer to as the interesting part of the graph. Excuse me. So what I'm hoping to get done in this second video is we're going to graph a tangent line at a chosen point, and we're going to allow the user to choose a point right here where we created a spot. And notice I'm using blue kind of as a cue to the user. That's where the user will enter a value. So let's go ahead and I'm going to just come over here and just float around maybe this point right here, and I see that that is at about -0.32. So I'm just going to choose x to be -0.32, just so we can kind of work with some value that's on this graph. Okay, our y value there is pretty easy to come up with, much like what we did down in this equation. We're just going to use this formula with these coefficients and this x value to produce our y value. So I get equals, I want a, which happens to reside in C2, times x raised to the fifth plus b times x raised to the fourth plus c times x raised to the third. And isn't it nice how Excel color coordinates that for us? Hopefully you can see that on your view at home. Plus d times x raised to the second plus e times our x value again plus f. And hit enter, and we get this guy. If I go back over to where our -0.32 is, hopefully I can get close to it. There we go. We can see it's picking up a value at our -3.3. So right in that area. Okay, so to find the slope, we're going to use a slope formula of this guy. And the slope formula of this guy would be, and maybe I'll just copy that down here and adjust this for convenience for us, but that's our derivative. So Control C, Control V. Let's see if I can do this. Our slope formula would be 5ax to the fourth plus 4bx to the third plus 3cx to the, and I'm just getting this for reference to get my equation in, plus 2dx. Let's just get rid of that guy. And then just plus e. That's our derivative of this guy. So I'm, again, just a reference so I can get my correct formula in here. So I want equals 5 times a times our x value we're using, again, is right here, only raised to the fourth, plus 4 times our b value times our x value raised to the third. So it's nice to have this as reference. Plus 3 times our c value times x raised to the second. Plus 2 times our d value times plain old x, and finally plus our e value. And we don't have an f value because it's a constant, and of course the slope of a constant is 0. So this should be our slope. So now I've got an x value, a y value, I've got a point, and I've got a slope. So my point slope formula could just be y minus negative 3.3926 equals m, our slope, this guy, times x minus negative 0.32. So we do a little bit of work with that, and we're going to go ahead and put that equation right in here for, I'll just call this our tangent line, and we're going to solve that equation for y. So let me just take this guy, and I'm going to modify this just so you can kind of see what's going on. This might not be the greatest way to show this, but it would be y minus, I would want to put in my y coordinate, which is the value in C15, equals our slope, which is the value in C16, times our x minus our x value that's in cell C14. And again, once again, just for reference. Now, on that one, let's go ahead and solve this guy for y, and we can solve this thing for y, and I'm just going to go ahead and we could solve for y, simplify, get it in slope intercept form. I don't think I really need to do that. All I really need to do, I see here, is just add C15 across. So if I just backspace this, put this over here, plus C15, I get a pretty good idea of what my equation should look like in here. So in C21 now, I'm going to put equals. I want my C16 value times parentheses my x value, here it is over here in A21, minus my C14 value, close parentheses, plus what's in C15. So again, I'm going to erase this in a moment. That's not going to have any meaning whatsoever for the user, but it's just a nice reference, nice to be able to see the cells I'm going to be using. Now, if I tried to replicate this right now, there would be a problem, and I think I'll show you that problem because this happens to people. This happens to me. I've got a lot of experience. I still do this from time to time, and you're going to see something kind of strange happen along the way here. We get perhaps some error messages, we get some zeros. So if you go into one of these and you look, what's going on here? If I double click this, look at the highlight, that's good. I'm using these three values and this. But if I go down to my next cell, I'm now using these three values, including C17. Let's go down to one of these error ones. I'm actually using the word tangent in an equation, and I'm killing Excel doing that. So if you paid attention on part one, what we need to do is these three cells, C14, 15, and 16, I don't want those to chase down when I replicate, but I do want A21, my x value, to chase. So I'm going to change C16 to $$16, $$14, $$15, and let's take a look. And there we have some reasonable change in our y values. So let's go ahead and replicate that. Again, I could drag it down 10,000 rows, or I could double click, take a quick look. It looks pretty good. It replicated all the way down to those 10,000 values. So now I just have to get this onto these values. I'll replicate this again so it selects all of them onto this chart. So I always say this in Excel, when in doubt, right click. If I float over the plot area, right click, I get to select data. Notice right now highlighted down there at A21 and B21 is the data that's on the graph right now. So I'm going to select data. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to add to this series over here. So I'm going to add a series. And the series name, I don't care about the series name. The series values are all of these guys. I think I'm just going to select them all. Takes just a moment to drag down there. The further down I pull, the faster it goes, and seems like it just increases in speed. And so You can hum a song to yourself right now because I'm dragging this down to 10,000. We would have an option to type that in, but just to be certain we get the right data, I'm going to go ahead and just select it all. So we're getting close. See how I do here. Ooh, not too bad. And got it. Okay, doesn't like what I have because it still has this 1 plus. So I'm going to just take that 1 plus. So it has sheet 1, C21 to C1021, and I click OK. Okay. Let's see. I think I may have a challenge on this. Let's drag up, take a look at our graph that we produced. Oh, there we have it. It looks pretty good. It starts at negative 1.3, goes to 1.5. There is my tangent at the point negative 0.32, negative 3.9, or negative 3.3926. I've got my tangent line. Let's see how that works. Let's put that tangent line over here closer to negative 1. Let's put it at negative 1. Boom, there it is. Now, one thing you notice is that Excel tries to chase the whole tangent line, and that's pretty nice to have. No problem there, but this is, again, it's dynamic. If I was to go, let's say, let my X-Men run all the way to negative 4, I could get a really steep tangent line if I come over here to when X is about negative 3.75. So let's go tangent line. Let's change our X value, negative 3.75. And there's our tangent line. Again, kind of inconvenient because maybe we don't really want to see from negative 1200 all the way up to 4000. Maybe we'd like to focus more on the blue curve. So we're going to talk now about how we go ahead and adjust the Y-min, Y-max. And one option we would have for that, the user would have, would just be to come over the axis and vertical axis, right click on it and format the axis. And the user could say, oh, I see, we're using a minimum that's just auto, which I guess on your, in Texas Instrument speak, that's kind of like zoom fit. In other words, if there's a value in the chart as far down as negative 1,000 or negative 10,000 in this case, we're going to try to chase it and make it fit on the chart. So I'm just going to go in maybe and instead of having it be auto, I'm going to fix it to maybe negative 20. And I'm going to fix my X max, and this may not be exactly what we want at this time, to 20, and click on close. And you see now we're negative 20 to 20. But now the user might want to go back in there and change it back to auto. And as soon as you find yourself going through a process over and over, you may decide that this is a good time to build a button that just does this for us. So here is what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and record a macro. This may be the first time some of you have done this, but this is really cool. We're kind of reaching into some areas of Excel that Excel has never worked with before. Or excuse me, that many people who are experts at Excel never work with. On the View tab, over here we have macros, and macro just records a process of instructions that you give Excel. So we click that, and we want to record a macro. Now, before you do that, I want you to make certain that your graph is not selected. Just select an empty cell somewhere. So it could be anywhere. Actually, it doesn't even have to be an empty cell. Just select a cell. We just don't want the graph selected. So I'm going to go into macros. I'm going to hit record macro, and I'm going to call this Y scale. You can't put any, you can't start with a number for a name, and you can't have any spaces in a name. So Y scale with no spaces, and I'm going to record this. As soon as I click OK, I'm going to go through the process that I just went through of rescaling my Y values, and then we'll take a look at what happens with that. So I hit OK. Everything I do now, so we're going to take our time with this. We don't want to foul something up here, otherwise we have to go and record the macro again. So what I did was I floated over till it said vertical value axis. Right click that. Format the axis. I'm going to keep that at fixed. I'm just going to change the values. Maybe negative 40 to 40. Nothing magical about those. You'll see what we're doing with this in just a moment. I'm going to click close. And now, if I was to stop recording the macro now, every time I ran this macro, hit a button to run this macro, the graph would end up being left selected. I don't like that, so I'm just going to select a cell, maybe A1. And now I'm going to stop recording the macro by going up to macros, stop recording. Okay, so I've got this macro recorded out there. Let's take a look. Let's see what that looks like. You could always go into macros, view macros. Another option is Alt F11. I'm going to go Alt F11. So I hold down Alt, I hit F11 at the top right-hand side of the keyboard above backspace. And you get into this little world right here, and in that world, you've got modules down here underneath the name of whatever you've named your graph. Mine's for Polynomial Graph or Video Part 1. But anyway, yours might say Book 1. That means you haven't saved yet. No problem. I'm going to open up my modules. It just says Module 1. Select it. And here's what I've got. Mine says Active Chart Objects Chart 12. Yours might not be Chart 12. Yours might be chart 1, 2, 3, something like that. We activate it. We selected the XL value. That's the value, the y-axis, and we change the minimum to -4 and the max, or 40, and the maximum to 40. Kind of makes sense. I mean, I might not understand everything going on there, but what we have to do is we have to use our Excel values, our values in C15 for our minimum. Excuse me, in C11 for a minimum out here, and in C12 for a maximum. So here's what I'm going to do. You see you have a list of little apostrophes here, some green lettering. I'm going to go next to the last apostrophe, hit enter a few times, give myself some space. And I'm going to type in there a variable. I'm going to call it ymin. Ymin, no spaces. I'm going to put in equals cells, C-E-L-L-S. I don't know why it's plural. Parenthesis, and then it asks, what row are you selecting? The row I'm selecting for my ymin value, if you can see over here, is row 11. What column? We would think it would be C, but index replies to a number, so we're column 3. So cells 11.3 is actually C3. It would be nice if in this Visual Basic for applications if we could just type cells C3, C11, but this is what we've got. I'm going to create ymax. Ymax equals cells. Now my ymax is down here in 12. I can't just click on that. That won't work. We have to type it in. So 12. It's also in column C3. And then instead of having my values be -40 and 40, you probably know where I'm going with this. I'm going to change this -40 to ymin, and this 40 to ymax. All right. So we create kind of a template to work with, and then we just massage it a little bit. Again, don't be concerned if yours doesn't say chart 12. It should say chart something. You'll be all right. Okay, I'm going to close this out. And probably a good time to do a Control S or save if you haven't yet. Nope, not going to do that. Okay, anyway, but good time for you to save. You can go through that. I'm just save a little time here. Now I'm going to create a button. And a button can be any object, not any cell entry, but any object. So I'm going to go to Insert, and it could be a text box. Maybe I'll just use a text box. It could be a shape. I'm going to use a text box. And I'm going to just draw a text box over here by my ymin, ymax. And I'm just going to go y space scale. Meaning you can adjust the font on that, of course. Now, once you have an object here, if you right-click on that object, you have an option to assign macro. And I'm going to assign that macro to y scale. And click OK. All right. At this point, I want to try and see if this guy works. So I'm going to set my ymin to maybe -100, my ymax to 100. And now, if I float over Y scale, which I could color, you notice that I always say this is Excel giving us the finger. Excel says, hey, click me. And there we go. We are negative 100 up to 0, which means I have an error in here somewhere. 11, 12. I wonder if I put in the right values. I'm going to go back into Alt F11. You might have caught it while I was doing this. And I am in 11.3 is my min. My Y max is, oh, I went 12.4. I think I said 3. That's good. It's probably good that you get to see that. But it's definitely in C12. So it was using, that's why, even though my Y max here said 100, it gave me a Y max of 0 because it was using my value in this cell. That's probably, I'm kind of glad that happened. That's probably good for you to see that that happens. So let's give this another try. Negative 100 to 100. Okay, well that's wonderful, but what if we actually want the zoom fit feature to work? That's a pretty nice feature too. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to reset these guys within a macro, reset my Y scale to actually go back to auto. So we can either use our Y scale that we selected or we can just have a zoom fit feature. So I'm going to go back into view, macros, record a new macro, which I'm going to call Zoom Fit, Z-O-O-M, no space, F-I-T. It won't like the space. Click OK. Select my chart, select my axis, format axis, set the minimum and maximum back to auto, close that, don't forget, select some cell, and stop recording. I'm going to insert another text box. Guess I could copy and paste. I'm going to call that guy Zoom Fit. Try to call that guy Zoom Fit. And remember how we assign that to the macro? I right-click that guy, assign macro, Zoom Fit, and let's see what we got here. Y scale, I'm going to go -4 to 10. Activate that. -4 to 10. I'm going to put it back on Zoom Fit. Object variable, or this happens all the time, and this is great for you to see. Object variable or with block variable not set. Debug. Okay. So I Alt F11 or I went into debug. You can stop that up here or reset. And then notice how this differs a little bit from this. For whatever reason, oftentimes and this didn't happen on the old version of Excel, older versions of Excel, but it happens on 2010. When we select it, when we're recording a macro, I most definitely selected my same chart, but then it just jumped straight to this. I'm really missing these two lines, and those are important ones. So I'm going to just steal from up here, Control C, come down here, create a little space, Control V, and notice I just put those guys right here. I think that should make some sense. Even if we don't totally understand this, all we really wanted to do was change the minimum scale from some value to just change it back to turn auto on. But we still need to select the chart. So I think we're going to be in good shape. Let's take a look. Y scale, good. Zoom fit, good. Y scale, good. Zoom fit, good. And there we have it. Great time if you get to this point to save. In some ways, I apologize for the little errors that popped up within the Visual Basic for applications, but it's probably good for you to see that. And we'll work through that. Big key in Excel, when in doubt, point and right click. When you're working in Visual Basic, don't expect it to work out perfectly the first time. No problem. We just get in there. It might even require just recording the macro again. There are going to be some little hiccups to that, but it is a really powerful tool, and the user would certainly appreciate not having to go back and forth between that whole process here. So I think I'll delete this, and we may talk about, we may add one more short video here, how we can actually put the equation of the tangent line on here and turn it into like y equals mx plus b. But I got to run now. Appreciate it, and we will be adding to this quite a few other functions besides just fifth degree polynomials.